Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. Today I want to start a new reading vlog for my series where I try new to me authors that have been on my list for a very long time, but I just never get around to reading their books. And so today we are doing reading vlog for Sarah Beth Durst. Now, what put this author on my list is her book Race the Sands, because I love a desert fantasy. But that was quite a few years ago now, and since then she has published a ton of books, and I basically want to read all of them. So it is high time I start reading this author, and I decided to still stick with Race the Sands as the first one I want to try, just because it was the one that intrigued me from the beginning. So in this reading vlog we are going to discuss Race the Sands by Sarah Beth Durst, and I'm very excited. I don't know a whole ton about this book. I think it will have kind of a desert setting, and it is about a race with like these mythical creatures, and I think it's about a mentor-mentee relationship for this race, but then I think it's also a lot more. So we'll see about that. I will check in when I'm 25% through the book, when I'm halfway through the book, 75% through the book, and then when I have finished it, we will discuss this book spoiler free, but I might do a little spoiler part right at the end of the video. So you will be safe to watch this if you have not read the book yet. And if I ever go into spoilers, I will very clearly warn you, so you will be safe. Okay, with that being said, let's start reading this book. So I'm sorry for the scary lighting situation. It is at night, but I wanted to quickly update this vlog because I'm currently about 25% through my audiobook Race the Sands, and I do plan on listening to a little bit more today and also tomorrow morning, so by the time I would have a chance to update this again, I would probably be much further in, so we just have to do it with this situation, sorry. But let me quickly tell you a little bit more about this book. So in this one, we start out following a woman who has been a racer in the past and now is a racing teacher. We learn about her that she had previously trained someone who was very close to winning the races. However, there was a tragic accident, and now she's regarded as kind of like a risk taker and someone who didn't see that her racer wasn't in the best shape when she sent him into the race. And so now she is teaching the children of like rich people who will never have a chance of like actually racing. They just do it kind of as a hobby. However, again, things go wrong, and now she has like one last chance to find a key hog that is kind of the creatures that they use for the races, and to find a new racer to train to win the races, or she will be cut off from money. Now, why is money so important to her? It's because she has a daughter, and this daughter has been chosen by the ogres, who is kind of like the cleric class of this world, and she has been chosen because her soul is so pure, and so she's in training now to become an ogre, and I can't pronounce this word, I'm so sorry, but the training is very expensive, and if our main character can't pay for it, she's not allowed to see her daughter anymore. They basically take her away to train her further. So that's why she needs money, and that is established very early on. Now, a little bit later, we meet another character, and this is a girl who ran away from her family, and she needs money to get out of a situation. She has also been trained to become one of those ogres, and I feel like the more I say it, the worse it gets. However, she failed the tests, and now her parents basically want her to repay them for all the funds they put in this education, and then she got kicked out. So she needs money fast, or there will be some terrible consequences because her parents are just terrible. So she meets our main character, and they become mentor and mentee, and they also find this Keyhawk that seems to be very, very dangerous, but might also be very unique. Let's just say that. I do have my suspicions what's going on with that one. Then a little bit later on again, we meet two other characters. We meet the kind of emperor to be, because the regent of this country has passed away, and now his brother has to take his place. However, first they have to find the soul of the former regent before the new one can start, and they haven't found his soul yet. So the whole country is kind of in limbo. They don't have a government at all. Like nothing, literally nothing can happen until they find this soul. And usually it doesn't take that long, because these ogres, they're usually like reading the souls of people, and then they can see what is kind of your reborn form, so which kind of animal you will be reborn as. However, it doesn't seem like they were correct with their last reading of the emperor who passed away. So we have this point of view, and then we have one of the ogres who is going out and trying to find this soul. And he basically has said, well, we have looked with like all of the creatures who we thought he could end up being, so let's look at the lesser creatures. And at the bottom of the bottom is the Keyhawks. Basically, you are only reborn as a Keyhawk if you were a terrible, terrible human, if you have done crimes, if you've murdered someone, stuff like that. Those are the characters we met so far. I don't think there will be more. And we see that while it is kind of about the races, and the main thing is this mentor-mentee relationship, there might be so much more at stake, especially if you consider who this Keyhawk might be. Now you might question like what's in it for the Keyhawks in this, and that's also explained in this first quarter of the book, and that is that the winner of all the races gets a token, and with this token he will, or they will, be allowed to be reborn as something else, as a Keyhawk. That's the only way to ever not be a Keyhawk again. So that's the only way they can redeem themselves. So that's the setup of the story. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I'm definitely liking the desert vibe quite a lot. That is mainly what drew me into the story, and I think the world building is quite interesting. I don't always love when these POVs get introduced so late. Like, I like knowing from the beginning which POVs I will get. And so that isn't always my favorite, but I'm going to be okay with this. But yeah, so far that's what we have established, and I'm definitely intrigued to see where things will go from here. Now, ending this like first quarter, we do have kind of almost like a training montage where we see that the girl and the Keyhawk make some great progress, so they might actually be ready for the first qualifying races, even though they had very, very little time. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see like if we're going into the races now, how that will be written, and whether it will be like very thrilling, because like I can definitely see the potential with these like deadly beasts. So far we have only seen them in like training sequences, but I definitely want to read about one of those races. So I'm now halfway into Race the Sands, and I wanted to give you a quick update. I have finished part 1 and have now started part 2 of the book. I think I've listened to about 1 chapter so far of the second part. And yeah, we're just gonna chat a little bit about this second quarter. I think I was a little bit surprised with some of the things that are going on now. We have a lot of our characters meet in the second quarter, and I expected things to take longer. So I was kind of pleasantly surprised that some of these things are happening quite fast right now, because yeah, there is like obvious things that you guess as you read the book, and it's always a little bit challenging if you can guess stuff and then it takes the characters forever to reach the same conclusions. So I'm quite happy to see that this is not the case with this book, that we have characters reach certain conclusions pretty quickly, that some things seem to get like resolved kind of more quickly, like this could easily have been drawn out a lot more, and that it is not, I really appreciate about this book. We have also gotten a closer look at Raya's parents. Raya is the girl that is training to become a rider for the races, and Raya is running away from her family, and now that we have met her parents, it is very obvious why. They are absolutely despicable people, and it was like kind of interesting to get them introduced to the story in that way. Now, what I also find interesting is that this book deals with the question of parenthood quite a bit, because for our main character, and I still can't remember her name because I said this before in other vlogs, I have this issue when I only hear something that I can't repeat it well. I have to like see it to connect in my brain. However, our main character, she has her own daughter, Shala, which she is trying to not protect but provide for in a way, and the like idea of like needing the money to secure her life with Shala is like the main driving force of the book. And then we have Raya and her parents, and we see like a very different form of like parenting. And then we also see this institution of the Augurs and how they treat the children and how differently that works out with Shala and with Raya. And I think having this discussion is quite interesting. However, I'm not quite sure if it will reach kind of the depth that I would like it to get to, because right now it kind of seems like we're leaving that topic behind, but maybe I'm wrong with that and we will get more discussions about that. Because I think, you know, this idea of like, you have on the one side the whole like a child needs their parents, their mother, to be happy, and on the other hand, obviously with Raya, is like trying to keep her away from her parents to have her be happy. And for now, those things kind of exist side by side, but they're not like really brought into any connection with each other. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see whether that will actually still happen, to get like this more. I'm sorry, there's a spider on my windowsill and it's really distracting me. I need to get it out of my flat. I don't know what I was saying, but yeah, to get this into more of a discussion with each other and not those two things kind of being like side by side but not touching in a way, if you know what I mean. I'm intrigued by that whole topic, but then we also start to get some races in the second quarter, and that's obviously very exciting. The races are very thrilling things that are going on in this book, and I really like the way they are written. It's not like overly descriptive, but definitely in a way that you can visualize it and that you can root for the characters. I think it's done really well, and I am very ready to see more races in the next part. So overall, I would say I am enjoying this one right now. We seem to get more POV characters in the second part, which we will see how I feel about that, because it might be a villain POV POV, and we all know I don't love villain POVs if they tell us what is going on the other side, and then with that kind of taking out the surprise when the villain actually does something. We'll see about that. But yeah, for now I will continue listening to this, and we'll talk again when I'm 75% through the book. So I'm now 75% into my audiobook Erased Descents, and it is time for another update. I will try to keep this one a little bit short. The plot is progressing. We're seeing some character development with some of our characters. We do also have a couple of character interactions that I think are very intriguing, and I would love to see where that goes. I also have a suspicion who is behind all of the things that are going on. I will talk in the spoiler part about my suspicion and also whether it's correct or not. But for now, I'm just really intrigued. So far, we have a couple of hints, but we don't really know who's the bad guy, who's the person behind everything horrible that is going on. I think that we do have a clearer picture now of kind of what might be going on. It is still a little bit unclear to me with the person I think might be behind it in a way. The reason for that is a little bit unclear to me, so we'll see. Maybe I'm completely off, or maybe the author will just have to explain to me why this person would be the perpetrator. But so far all of my spidey senses are tingling, so we'll see about that. But yeah, I'm still really enjoying the book. I think it's a very solid fantasy standalone that I'm having a really good time with. I really like the setting and the whole idea of these races. I think it's very exciting, and I said in a previous video where I read Blacktop Wasteland that I do kind of fast cars and stuff like that. So I think monster races is not so far away from that. So it is yeah, I really expected that I would love these races as well, and I think that they're done in enough detail. I said that before in the previous clip, that I think you get enough of the races without getting too much of the races, which is a very fine line, and I think Sarah Beth Durst is doing her best to walk that line, and she's doing really well with that. So for me, it's exactly the right amount of racing, but then also all of that behind the scenes that we're getting, and kind of the big picture things that are going on with this particular race, with this particular Keyhawk. So I think it's very fascinating, it's very fun, I'm having a good old time with it. There is some characters you can ship a little bit as well. There is some very slight romance in the air, but I love the romance that is in the air. I very much ship it. I think it's so kind of cute and wholesome and sweet, and I really love that, especially in this brutal desert world. It fits so well. So I really hope we will get a very nice conclusion to that. But yeah, so far there is still a ton we don't know, a ton to figure out. I have less than 4 hours in the audiobook now, so I hope to get to this quite quickly now, because I definitely want to know the answers, and I want to see my characters that I definitely care about. I want them to be well in the end. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the end. I'm really I have a lot of trust that Sarah Beth Durst will bring this one home in a phenomenal way. So I'm not babbling on about it. I will just go read it, and then I will talk to you again. So I just finished listening to my audiobook of Erased Descents, and I'm here with my final update for this vlog. And wow, like those last 25% were a lot. Like I actually couldn't stop listening to it today. Oh, where even to begin? I think the last 20% of the book are so tense. There's so much going on. It pulls no punches. Like if more of this book had been this good and this engaging, totally would have like blown me out of the water. I'm struggling a little bit with my rating for this book because I loved the ending so much, but then still I never reached that magical level of connection to the characters that I'm usually looking for. On Storygraph, I gave it 4.25 stars. It just can't reach that 4.5 level for me, just barely. So I think I'm gonna settle on a 4.25 star rating. But I had a very good time with this book. I think one thing is that this is more plot than character driven. Personally, I do prefer a character driven story, and while I did really like the characters, like I enjoyed reading about them and I think they were like good people and I would like to have people like that around me. Not all of them, but some of them. I just felt like the character interactions and the connections between the characters, they stayed a little bit like too surface level for me personally. I really like to get into those character dynamics, and I felt like this book didn't really do that because it was so heavily focused on the plot. In those last 20%, we do have the final race, and the final race was very tense, very tense. I was like in it. I was so like anticipating how it's going to end because like at that point, you know, there is like 20% of the book left, so you know things will have to go wrong. The question is just in what kind of direction will the things go wrong? And go wrong they do. And as I said, the events at the end of this book, they just like roll over you like an avalanche, if you want to use that metaphor. And I was like hooked. I was like scared for these characters because, to be honest, in those last 20%, the book also really pulled out that it is an adult book and it gets very violent, very bloody. And so, yeah, all the gloves were off with the finale of this book. And I loved that. I really enjoyed that. But it just, the first the first 80% of the book just made it so that even when like important characters die, I felt a little bit of shock because like I didn't think this book would go there, but I did not feel like real grief for these characters just because I hadn't been introduced to these characters enough that I would actually care about them going away. I think that's all I'm gonna say because I really don't want to spoil anything, but I think that the ending of this book is absolutely great. And if you can like find your groove with it at the beginning and just accept that it takes a little bit of build up to get like really intense, then you will probably really like this book. So I really did. I think you should go read it, especially if you, like me, like desert fantasy, because yeah, there isn't like a lot of like great ones out there, and I feel like this one with the whole like race situation and these like Keyhawk monsters, it just worked really well for me. I had a good time. This is it for the spoiler-free part of the video, but if you have read the book, we can talk a few spoilers now. For everyone else who might be leaving the video right now, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and tell me in the comments whether you actually want to pick this book up now, because I feel like even though Sarah Beth Durst has become very popular in the last year with her like cozy book, not a lot of people I have seen talk about this one a whole lot, so maybe this inspired you to pick this one up. Would love to hear about that. And so now let's talk some spoilers. Let's start with the final race. The final race was like very tense because this is like what everything has been building to. You know that, all the races before, they have just been like little roadblocks on the way to this final race. Until the final race, you know that the Keyhawk and Raya are gonna make it. Obviously, they have to, or the whole plot would fall apart. So I feel like the final race is the one where you actually like start being really, really scared. Even though I must say that one race in between where she doesn't win, but then the other one, the winner, has actually cheated, and so she wins by default basically, but not because she was first. I think that was kind of a smart move, but still, when you read it, you know that something will happen and that she will win in the end, because otherwise the book wouldn't make sense. So this is the race we've been waiting for, the race where actually we don't know whether they will win. And I think it is done so smartly. The way she, like, for a moment sees like all the people she wants to prove to that she won't lose, but then she sees her friends who are cheering her on, and that is actually what makes her win. I thought that was like a really sweet little idea in there, and just overall you really want her to win, like you want them to be the winners, and so they win. And then the whole plot starts to unravel with the augurs, and also with this lady, I did not catch her name, but the one that I had suspected this whole time. And I think, like, obviously I'm a great detective. However, I think that the hints were definitely there in the book, that you can like piece it together. The whole like thing that she wanted this power for herself in the end didn't quite convince me. However, because she's working together with the augurs, I guess that like the real reason, or the real like initiator of this whole plot, were the augurs, and then they pulled her in as someone who might be power hungry enough to play along and become the next emperor. Her like motivation to be part of all of this, when she could have just simply married the emperor. Maybe she didn't like him. Maybe she had been pretending this whole time. I don't know. But I just felt like her role, even though I suspected her, was still a little bit flimsy by the end. And I did kind of like that the ambassador killed her. I would have liked for her and the emperor to actually have like a meeting after everything was wrapped up. We did not get that, because I think that would have been interesting also for him to kind of like figure out what had happened, because obviously he was in love with her, so he was like super betrayed at that point. We also don't really like see the kind of like romancy things that are hinted at in the book play out. So at the end, Raya is still kind of like sweet on the emperor, but they haven't like made any progress in any way. And then obviously with Tamra and the augur dies, and that I did not see coming. And really, until the last second of this book, I thought he would at least like be found in his like reincarnation or something. Like I don't know, I really liked him as a character, and I really thought that his romance with Tamra was so sweet and wholesome, and then they just kill him off. I don't know, I thought that was unfair. I kind of thought that was unfair. But oh well, that was like a really, really tense chapter as well, because he starts realizing what's going on, and he starts like, yeah, just being, accepting his fate, basically, as he makes this last plan that he hopes will help save everything, and obviously it does. But he's dead. And that was sad. Like, I felt so much shock in that moment. I didn't feel enough like sadness. As I mentioned before, I had hoped. I felt most sad that I wouldn't be seeing any like romantic things with the two. That was the most sadness I felt. So that was a bit unfortunate, but still, like, it was very, very surprising to me that they actually killed him like that. And I think that we get like a lot of the bloodshed at the end, like first with the like high augurs that are all like disposed of with the Keyhawks, and then also with the enemy army. That is like a lot of bloodshed for a book that kind of starts out like, it doesn't feel like YA, but because Raya is so young, I think this could have ended up being a YA story up until the end. And then the end is just like, okay, let's kill a ton of people with some monsters. So a little bit of the balance was off, but I loved the ending. I loved the ending. I just wish that more of the build-up would have been like that, or would have prepared us more for that, because I feel like there I see the disconnect. I think that at some point there's like a switch in the book, and then from there it's just go 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 go. And talking maybe a little bit about the lady who first hired Tamra and Raya, she was amazing. I loved her so much. Like, she is the definition of kind of like morally gray and just like very self-interested, but at the same time she is doing like the right thing again and again and again and again. And I really enjoyed, like, at first we don't really get like a good read on her, and with that I also think that her perspective is brought into the book a little bit late. It would have been much more fun to have her perspective from the beginning, and just from the beginning kind of know that she's putting on a front, and kind of like her motivations, because yeah, we learn about that quite late in the book, but I still thought she was like so fun. And yeah, she has this little bit of like, if you take like the Hunger Games metaphor, like this capital attitude to herself. And also the way her story ends, the way that she basically accepts that it doesn't really matter whether her parents thought she was worthy, because she knows that she deserves everything. And I love that. She was just so funny, and I'm so glad we had that character in the story. Maybe talking a little bit like big picture, I think the idea of this whole like belief system and this religion that we see in this book is very intriguing, because obviously we do have like religions in this world that believe in like being reborn, but in this book it is very much tied to morality. So the idea that if you are a good person, you will be reborn as a higher level animal, which already implies that you can rank kind of animals, and that some are at the top and some are at the bottom, which obviously, like, that is such a like crazy thought that I almost want to call it fascist. I don't know, but like, if you start like really thinking about it, it's kind of crazy to like say to someone like, oh, you're gonna be reborn as this and that, and just like say that this kind of animal is like low. Like, on what scale? Like, who decided that? I don't know. I think that's like already like, I mean, obviously we do it in our lives as well, but like this whole system is built on a hierarchy of all living creatures. Yeah, if you think about that a little bit, I think it's like very fascinating. And so in the end, it is like super surprising that the augurs are the people who they have all the power, because they are the ones who can say like, your soul is good and your soul should improve. But then also, since they're the only ones who can read the souls, they can say whatever, and that's basically what they do in the end. And I think them kind of like trying to hold on to that power very much fits into the whole thing, even though at first it might seem like it doesn't really work, like something that our augur, like Yorbel or whatever his name is, what he struggles with, because he's like, hey, they can't lie, they're like the purest souls, but then they're not. They are not. So yeah, I did really like this whole concept, and how this book in the end showed that it doesn't really add up. It doesn't completely let go of this idea of the hierarchy. I guess I would have liked to see that broken up a little bit more, because I think the idea of, you know, you could be reborn as anything, it really opens up compassion in the world, but thinking that if you do good, you will be reborn as something good, like maybe a house cat or something. But if you do bad, you will be reborn as an ant, even though ants are amazing. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I thought that was a very, very interesting concept to explore in this book as well. And I would love to hear what you thought about it if you've read the book in the comments. Don't know if I made like a lot of sense right there, but I just thought it was interesting to explore this kind of religion as well. And yeah, I just had a ton of fun with this book. I just wish I would have felt closer to these characters, but I think that the world and the plot are like super engaging and super fun and super bloody, and I just had a very, very good time. I think with that, I will let you go. I probably could have said a ton more, but I don't want this video to be hours long, as they usually end up being. So I hope you had fun watching this. Leave a like and a nice comment. Let me know what you thought about the book, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!